Rhizazorb is redefining what growers expect from phosphate fertilizer. Backed by data and built for performance, Rhizazorb helps reduce phosphorus losses, improve uptake, and boost ROI without increasing input costs. Join the next wave of growers switching to the next generation of phosphorus fertilizers by visiting phospholutions.com.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello and welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host on this Agronomic Monday, Lyndsey Smith, and I'm pleased to be here. It was downright chilly this morning, and I, for one, am here for it. Now, I will say, though, if you can believe it, there was actually a little tiny pocket of Ontario that got a very light frost this morning. Yes, it was Northern Ontario, but still, I'm having flashbacks to Manitoba in mid-August. It was all bad. I'm hoping it stays a little warmer for a little while longer, but we don't need those 35 plus humidity days that we've been trudging through. Here in Ontario, we are in very dry to drought conditions for areas of the province. Some, like myself, got a bit of rain last week. Definitely helps, but still there are plenty of producers really hurting. And so that will be where we start today's show. I've got plenty of questions for Pete to catch up on. And also, stick around for the end of the show. We've got a conversation with Bern Tobin and Adrian Rivard of Drone Spray Canada. He's going to unpack all the different opportunities with drones, but of course, a reminder, not all of them are actually registered for use just yet. Okay, we've got a great show lined up. Let's get to a break, and I'll be back with Peter Repeat Johnson right after this. Protect your anhydrous ammonia application earlier than normal this fall. Defend against potential losses and protect your bottom line with new Centuro A-Pro Nitrogen Stabilizer. Patented active ingredient pronitridine offers agronomically effective protection where it matters most, below ground. The new concentrated formulation lowers application rates. Start early with Centuro A-Pro as part of your nitrogen management plan. Contact your local retailer or visit centuro.ca for more information today.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Nearly 600 trials demonstrate that Rhizazorb allows growers to use as much as 50% less phosphorus without compromising yields in major row crops such as corn and soybeans. Multi-year, multi-location replicator research trials demonstrate that Rhizazorb at reduced application rates maintains or increases yields without lowering soil phosphorus levels. If you have additional questions about Rhizazorb, please contact your Phospholutions regional sales manager or visit phospholutions.com.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith. It is Monday, August 18th. That means it's Agronomic Monday. And from nutrient management to the latest weather, market, and ag trends, The Dirt, an economics podcast, is your place for farm-smart topics to boost your profitability. Join Mike Howell on Season 4 of The Dirt podcast, available now at nutrient-economics, that's economics with a K, .com. All right. We bring in, as always, our resident agronomist. It is Peter Pete Johnson. Pete, how was your weekend?
Oh, the weekend was awesome. Thanks, Lyndsey. We actually had grandchildren visiting us from the UK late last weekend, Saturday. And so, man, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old they're a ton of fun, but they're also on the go all the time. I think Friday night Pete was pretty darn tired. I think Graham was pretty tired as well. But it just a whole lot of fun there. And then Sunday we were trying to do some cleanup catch up. How's that? So a good weekend, but busy.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, for when we touched base last week, most of Ontario was anticipating some rain. Plenty got it. Lots did not. We had a few other sort of smaller systems, I would call them, move through this past weekend. We here in the Ottawa Valley didn't get much of anything. But what we did get last week was really fantastic. Other areas, though, that needed it so badly, even, the teeny little smattering of rain they got, just not enough. So the drought conditions in many areas definitely sort of further entrenched after this week. What are you hearing out on the landscape from this past week?
So, Lyndsey, I find it so interesting because we get dry periods, but this is one of the worst dry periods, droughted periods, if you will, that we've seen in a lot of years over a broad geography for a long period of time. So we often get regional, small droughts for 3 weeks or a month, and it hurts crop yields, but then it rains. It's Ontario. It always rains. This particular year, just the way it has worked out, the drought hit fairly late. So wheat yields, by the way, a lot of wheat yields have been incredible. If you haven't reported your wheat yield into Agricor yet, please do so, because Pete wants to know where we ended up. I think it's going to be very good. And a lot of people push back about growing wheat because it's just not economic, right? Mm-hmm. There are some growers, Warren Schneckenberger for one, they were out doing yield estimates in his cornfield, and he's in the drought area. And, their estimate on his corn yield is a lower bushel per acre corn yield than he ended up with in his wheat crop, his winter wheat crop. And you just go, man, if that isn't a reason to not put all your eggs in one basket. And the yield estimates can be out on corn. I'm not saying that it will be less, but he had a really good wheat crop. And so that's kind of interesting. But that doesn't answer your question. What I find just astounding. So here at Ingersoll, where I live, last week on Tuesday, we got 1.2 inches of rain. We were incredibly dry. The lawns were burnt off. The corn was firing. The soybeans were wilting. And we got 1.2 inches in very short order. It was a thunderstorm type rain. And so two questions then become, okay, it came so fast. How much of that is usable? Did we get it into the soil? And if you're on a clay soil, the cracks are so wide, it just runs down the cracks, and it still helps, but we're not sure how usable it is. But I was thinking, and actually had some farmers ask me, okay, Pete, so you get an inch of rain, we're totally dry. Like, how long does that give us moisture for? And I think we talked briefly about this last week, right, Lyndsey, that the corn crop is kind of using that 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch of water per day. The soybeans are in that same game. So if you got an inch of rain, you would say that should give me 4 days. We got 1.2. That should almost be 5 days. By Friday, the soybeans on the eroded knolls where they had been wilting before were wilting again. So that rain on Tuesday gave us exactly 2 days, even though it was 1.2 inches. And I think that's just because of how it came. I think it's because of how dry we were. And also, did we have active roots where the water was, and a whole bunch of things. And trust me, we wanted the 1.2 inches. We have not gotten significant rainfall since. And so we're right back into that stress period where things are really struggling from lack of water. But I was surprised. I thought the 1.2 inches would at least get us till Saturday and probably till Sunday. Nope. by Friday, we were under drought stress again.
Now, it does, yield is one thing for our grain crops. There comes a point, and we certainly have seen this in this last week and maybe even the week before, in certain areas where, and I know the West deals with this at times, where at some point you recognize you're not making grain here, but you could potentially salvage forage. And for those who are, say, a mixed farm or livestock operators, you can potentially recoup some of that value and turn it into forage. But there are risks, of course, and this has been a conversation. We're in a grazing group here. Christine O'Reilly has been a great resource, sort of weighing in on when you need to be careful about what you're harvesting. We're going to explore this sort of more over the next week as well here on RealAg Radio and at RealAgriculture.com, because of course there are some concerns, not just for livestock and the feed, but also of course for the very human component of our farming operations. So top of mind, Pete, for you, when you hear stressed crops and salvaging for feed, where does your brain go? What are you worried about?
Yeah, and the immediate worry is, did you get that inch of rain just before you harvest? So those droughted crops are starving for all nutrients, but particularly corn silage is one of the worst. And of course, it's also one of the places you go to first, because if that corn is droughted and it's actually, the leaves are all fired up, and people, as soon as they see leaves fired, they say, oh, the silage will be too dry. No, that isn't true. The leaves themselves are less than 15% of the total weight. So be careful if you're going to take that you get the right moisture content. But under drought conditions, even the stalk will start to lose moisture. And so, yep, there are people out there taking silage right now. And if you're taking silage without any rainfall, there's a pretty good chance that crop is so droughted that it will make silage and not cause an issue. Interestingly enough, the silage will likely be better fiber digestibility than regular corn silage. Now, that's not much of a benefit when you are at, 25% or 15% of the normal yield you would expect, but at least it tends to make good quality feed, even though you don't think it would, because there isn't much grain there. But there's enough sugars in the stalk, and without that ability to really make a lot of lignin, the fiber digestibility is a wee bit better. But at the end of the day, where my brain goes, so we got that 1.2 inches, and it wasn't enough, and so you're out there going to take that silage off. As soon as you get rain, the nitrogen in the soil goes with the water. It goes to the plant. The plant is not only starved for water, it's also starved for nutrients. It sucks that nitrogen up. And then you take it for silage, you've got nitrate issues, and you've got silo gas concerns. So from a human health standpoint, please, silo gas is real. You often can't see it. You often can't smell it, and it kills. So as soon as you are making silage out of droughted materials, you have to worry about nitrates in the feed. You have to worry about silo gas from a human perspective.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So this is your alert. I'm not going to steal your triple alert.
Well, I will. Alert!
There we go.
Be safe.
Yes, but be safe, please. So yes, we have to think about our animals, but we really need to think about our humans as well. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, it is, I think, better known that this is a risk, and we'll see tweets about it and shares about it, but awareness is really key. So please, everyone, be safe and be aware that these scenarios exist and are at higher risk for sure right now. Okay, we are going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back with our resident agronomist, Pete Johnson. We're going to talk a bit about harvest, of course, and some very suspiciously tall weeds. That'll be when we come back right after this.
Every seed starts a story at Alliance Seed. A The seed holds the promise of successful harvest each year, from the first day of planting as your crop grows and navigates the challenges of weather, to the final load from the last field. It all begins with the seed you choose. Trust Alliance Seed to guide your choices by providing the expertise and information needed to match the right seed to your farm's unique potential. Start your success story with cereal and pulse varieties by visiting allianceseed.com. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is a video series that showcases the latest in canola research and production agronomy. Learn from some of the best at your own pace through quick and timely producer-focused videos available on our YouTube channel. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is the quickest way to keep up to date on all the latest in canola production. Boost your canola IQ with the Canola School, brought to you by BASF, and visit canolaschool.com.
Built on over 100 years of seed innovation and unwavering commitment to farmers, Pioneer 100 Series canola hybrids deliver a step change in yield performance and agronomic traits. This isn't just better canola, it's different canola. Pioneer 100 Series. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 series to learn more today.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. With volatile markets and rising costs, now's your chance to be part of the solution. It's time to secure your future with Genesis Fertilizers. Gain control and ensure access to locally produced nitrogen. Act now to protect your farm's future for generations. Visit genesisfertilizers.com to learn more. All right, we bring back in Peter Wheat Johnson. Pete, I think they're just fun to say, but cranberry beans, ready to harvest, just trucking along. How is that going? What do we need to think about when we think about a mid-August harvest?
So they're not quite at harvest yet, Lyndsey, but they are coming in incredibly fast. And so crans are always fast, right? They're just one of those beans that you can plant last and they still end up often being first to harvest, which always astounds me because they have such a short growing season. And you would say, well, they're not going to yield very well, though they can really yield well. But with the dry weather, with the heat that we've had, everything, there's even soybeans that are starting to drop leaves. And that's not what we really want to see on the first ones I saw were kind of on the 15th of August. So this is the 18th now. I'm going like, yeah, that does not bode well for big yields in soybean crops. But the crans are coming, so harvest is approaching almost for sure. We are going to see some crans harvested the last few days or of August or the first few days of September. And so what are you thinking about? Well, number one, you got to have the harvest equipment ready, because typically with cranberry beans, we don't use our regular combine. We're using a bean machine because they're a large seeded crop. And so get the harvest, get the puller out, get things ready to go. And then we have to look at timing pre-harvest if needed. And generally speaking with crans, pre-harvest application is a requirement because they often are not as uniform as we would like. This is pretty typical in edible beans. So you have to try to even them up as much as possible. And this year, it was just, for some reason this year we saw more variability often at emergence than we would like to see. So that if you have variable emergence, almost for sure you're going to have variable maturity. So it's scout, and you got to time them right. You got to let those beans start to develop their cranberry color, and the pods should change color before we're out there with that pre-harvest desiccant.
Now, I will tell you that the first time I saw beans being pulled, I realized that I had probably not been living right, because I was a grown-up before I saw it, Pete. So it's pretty cool. I always thought that you just harvest any edible beans like you just harvest regular soybeans. No, friends. Some of them have to be pulled, and then you pick them up. It's super cool. Anyway, check it out. I love it. Okay, now, but something like a short season like crans or even soybeans, really, this year, probably not one of the ones where double cropping made sense, but there are definitely years where at times it does. Someone asked me actually this weekend about, hey, do winter wheat and winter canola follow each other in rotation if they both work in a region? So there's all these questions about, can we get 2 crops in a year? What about relay cropping? How do we start to unpack sort of this idea of fitting shorter season, maybe winter or fall seeded? How do we sort of tackle this? Where are producers having success?
So that's an awesome question, Lyndsey, and we're talking to all of Canada and a good part of the United States, if not all of the United States, and there's such different climates. And so this whole concept of double cropping, and it's a hot topic in Ontario because we've been getting longer summers, and we also are getting shorter season soybeans. And you mentioned winter canola. There's also winter barley. And so I have growers that make winter barley work, even though winter barley can yield really well if you manage it and you don't get too much barley yellow dwarf in it. And it comes off typically 10 days earlier than winter wheat. But it's not as profitable because even though it yields well, typically the value of the barley is not very good. And if we struggle to make winter wheat profitable and barley's worth less than wheat, that just makes it pretty tough. But double cropping soybeans behind it and getting, a 40 bushel crop, well, that can work. Or with winter barley, we even do have growers that will double crop edible beans. Now, you don't double crop crayons because harvest quality is so critical. And if you plant the crayons too late, then it'll be October, November when you try to harvest them, and that generally doesn't work out so well. But things like black beans that are easier to combine and keep the quality better. I have growers who will try to double crop black beans and have had some good success last year, excellent success doing that. This year with the dry weather, Lyndsey, man, we are like Western Canada. When I talk cover cropping in Western Canada, most growers roll their eyes because of 2 things. You can't give away moisture to a cover crop, even though you want the biology in the soil doing good things. You're so moisture starved that any moisture that cover crop uses is a negative to your crop. So there's this balance there. And this year, the double crops look like they could be very, very questionable. I'll put it that way. I won't say they're done yet, but there's a lot of double crops that are struggling, and that's because it has been too dry. And when it's too dry, it just cover crops or double crops become really, really questionable.
Mm-hmm. Water is everything, especially when you don't have it.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's that.
Jason Mock, not everybody, but lots of people hear of the success that Jason Mock has with his relay cropping, where he plants winter wheat in twin 60-inch rows, 60 inches between the center of those twins. I think they're 10-inch twins or 7.5-inch twins. And they plant soybeans the next spring in between them. And he's having incredible success. There's some special things about where Jason is. He's got hog manure. That makes a difference. But I had a grower who was there in June, I believe. And when he was there in June, Jason had already had 18 inches of rain in his growing season. If you get that much rain, double crops or relay cropping can have some success. Man, if you tried relay cropping in 2025 in Ontario, because we did some relay cropping trials, I will guarantee that those soybeans that you relay cropped would be an absolute disaster. We saw it time and again. Moisture is so critical when we get into pushing the envelope in that nature.
So now I teased that we would talk about tall weeds before coming to this segment, but actually this dovetails in to a couple other questions, and we're probably going to have to break a few of these down. However, I think this relates to a conversation on it happened on Twitter, and talking about no-till into soybeans versus a legume stand. Walk me through this. What are some of these experiences? Because I think there is a moisture tie-in here, but maybe not.
Yeah, no, so absolutely. So Peter Harvey tweeted out a great picture of two cornfields, and I assume they were side by side. It wasn't quite clear, but one was corn growing after a legume cover crop. So that would be corn, I'm pretty sure, after winter wheat, where he grew a legume cover crop. And that was in, the fall of 2024 when we had good moisture, versus no-tilling corn into soybeans. And soybeans are a legume, but soybeans rob the soil of nitrogen and they don't have a really good root system. So this, where he planted no-till corn following the soybeans, and Peter's been no-till for 30 plus years. So from that standpoint, he should have great soil health. After the soybeans, corn's droughted, it's firing up. After the legume cover crop, the corn is green to the ground almost, and such a difference on the same moisture. And so that is the benefit, number one, of wheat in the rotation. We know that when you get stressed conditions, wheat in the rotation helps the corn, helps the soybeans. But it also shows that when you have that legume cover crop, and in particular red clover, this data is very clear that added soil health, that soil tilth that you get, the added nitrogen that releases through the growing season, both of those things really help a crop tolerate drought stress better. And so, yeah, in that situation, it's really working for him because the legume cover crop didn't steal any of the spring moisture on a year where we are moisture starved. It basically died over the winter, or he killed it, without letting it steal any. On the other hand, Clark Fretz down in the Niagara Peninsula tweeting back that he's seeing the exact opposite, where his cover cropped acres are actually performing less well or more poorly than his non-cover cropped acres. And his comment was, we're so dry, the cover crop utilized moisture that we didn't have to lose for the crop. And I think that's exactly right. If you took some spring moisture, and again, don't know the scenarios exactly, but man, in a situation where you had cereal rye and you let that cereal rye kind of come to flag leaf stage before you took it out on a year like this, and it pumped 3 inches of moisture out of the soil that is now not available for the crop. That is all bad when it comes to having good crop yields. So it's such a fine line that we walk, Lyndsey, in terms of trying to have great soil health, trying to do the best for resiliency and for long-term soil benefit. But the best thing you can do for soil health is to have a good cash crop. And in this situation, moisture matters. Mm-hmm.
Now, you actually just hit on something that reminds me that I need to remind everyone listening that is a key point of tonight's conversation on the agronomists. We are going to be talking about soil organic matter, so conserving it, building it, what it's even made up of. And one of the key things that often comes up in this conversation is that a vibrant, healthy, growing crop is one of the biggest drivers of building or conserving soil organic matter. So lots of other things go into it, but it's those growing roots. It's a happy growing crop, a cash crop, exactly that, that really plays into keeping your soil healthy as well. So we will talk about that tonight on The Agronomist, 8 p.m. Eastern. Join us. Head on over to realagriculture.com/agronomist at showtime, or find us on YouTube. You can hit notify me and it will let you know when we go live. So do that. And Pete, I hope you'll join us tonight in the comments. Not like last week where you actually had to jump in and pitch it for our guest, which was wonderful. And I would like to thank you for doing that. But I'm sure you would rather be a guest, or rather be in the comments than a guest at the last minute.
Either way, I just love the agronomist. It's just
We had
a
a great
bunch of
time.
fun for an hour on Monday nights.
That's right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk about those tall weeds, and we'll also talk about working manure into the rotation as well. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with more RealAg Radio right here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM, right after this.
Soil health is under pressure, but real solutions start below the surface. Black Earth offers a full suite of humic solutions, from high-purity granules to powder, liquid, and soluble formulations, all powered by pure Humulite. Formulated for performance, backed by consistency, trusted by growers worldwide from one of the world's rarest reserves. Grow stronger with the power of Black Earth Humulite. Learn more from Mine to Market at blackearth.com.
At Proven Seed, we know that farming in Western Canada doesn't just teach us, it shapes us. Here we face challenges with resilience, innovation, and grit born from decades of experience. We battle the conditions again and again because growing crops here isn't just what we do, it's who we are. We're raised to adapt just like you, with varieties grown specifically for your local conditions. Visit provenseed.ca/raised to adapt to hear our story.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM. FP Genetics brings new seed genetics to Canadian farms, empowering growers to thrive in ever-changing conditions. Visit FP Genetics and join thousands of Canadian growers who trust FP Genetics to deliver innovative, reliable hybrid fall rye seed genetics season after season. Experience the next wave. All right, for our third segment, we've got Wheat Pete Johnson joining us here on this Agronomic Monday. Pete, some growers reporting very tall weeds. What do we need to know when we see those weeds? Is it that we should be zapping them? Is it that we should be going and pulling them? Should we figure out what they are? What's the story?
Oh, yeah, Lyndsey. And the third segment, again, this Agronomic Monday, I'm just going, aren't people getting, are you not getting tired of Wheat Pete?
Never.
Anyway, yeah, I love doing this, so thank you. And yes, tall weeds are a problem. So two things. I mean, for sure, we talked about cranberry bean harvest earlier, right? We're going to harvest those crans. Well, if they're a mat of weeds, boy, zapping those weeds before they set seed can really be a benefit because it reduces the seed set. But there's lots of different things that come into play. And now it's pretty much probably too late to use the weed zapper because they've already set seed. And the other challenge is, how much do you tramp when you do that? But when I see tall weeds, and if I see tall weeds in a cranberry bean crop, it's because crans only grow, 18 inches tall at the most. So a tall weed in an edible bean crop is different than a tall weed in soybeans or in sweet corn or in field corn, because I see a tall weed in a soybean and it looks like a pigweed plant. The alarm bells just go off, ding, 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 because we have resistant water hemp, and we now have as well Palmer amaranth that has been found here in the province of Ontario, and they just look like tall pigweeds. So get out there if you have those tall weeds and identify. And if there's only a few of them, pull them and get them the heck out of the field before they make seed and drop it on the ground. Because if it does turn out to be something like water hemp, like Palmer amaranth, of preventing it from setting seed and getting that problem to become a big problem is really, really critical.
I learned that velvet leaf has one of these great characteristics. So unlike something that just naturally is very tall, velvet leaf will just continually grow to be taller than the crop canopy. What a jerk, Pete. And also, why didn't I get that? Because I can barely see over the counter. And so I would like more velvet leaf jeans, please and thank you. Anyway, what a pest that
It is one of it is most interesting weed. And the other thing about velvet leaf, Lyndsey, is that if you have a patch and you say, I'm not letting that go to seed, and you pull it out, and it's got seed pods, so you carry it out of the field and you say, well, we'll just burn it. Yeah, good luck with that, because the fire will not kill the velvet leaf seeds. It'll kill most seeds, not velvet leaf seeds. They come right through the fire and they just grow like you didn't even touch them. So interesting weed for sure. Yes.
Yeah, it's a pesky one. And for anyone who hasn't actually picked velvet leaf, it is kidney soft. Anyway, well named. Okay, so tall weeds, go check them out. Now, question from out my way. We touched on cover crops last segment. I want to come back to this one in that we are, of course, that time of year that, if the wheat crops come off, you're supposed to report your yields, as Pete said, so he knows how great the wheat crop did. You're going to take care of the weeds after it, and then you're putting in your cover crop. And let's say you're putting in oats, Pete. And as anyone who listens to Wheat Pete will know, you've got to put down some nitrogen with those oats. It's going to make it worth it. It's going to make the whole system work better. What if I've got manure? Does that replace the nitrogen that I would have to potentially put down with my oats? Dairy manure, specifically.
Yeah, and so that was another Twitter question, and Warren responded with, well, I'll do the agronomist answer and say it depends.
Yes.
and it really does, but typically, two things. If you're a dairy farmer growing oats and you're going to put manure on the oats and you're going to harvest those oats as a forage, which under dry year, if we get some late moisture, that can be a really important emergency forage, then absolutely the 50 pounds of nitrogen that we talk about on cover crops, that is really to avoid yield drag next spring, and it's to change the carbon to nitrogen ratio in the oats itself. And Lyndsey, what's really interesting is Josh contacted me out of the Niagara Peninsula this year, and he has a cornfield down there that all year has been poor. They put enough nitrogen on it. It was nitrogen starved. They added more nitrogen. It didn't seem to respond. And he comes to find out that they grew the oat crop without 50 pounds of nitrogen. And as an agronomist, I haven't got my brain around this. And I really need Dr. Dave Hooker, Ridgetown Campus, University of Guelph. He's the true scientist of agronomists to help me understand why. Because if I put oat residue in the soil that's high carbon, low nitrogen, and I add nitrogen, you would think that would solve the problem, but it does not seem to. And I have seen this now probably 10 times in the last couple of years where not enough nitrogen ended up hurting the following corn crop. But that 50 pounds of nitrogen really is contingent on the oat crop growing. You leave it there. You don't harvest it. As soon as you are going to harvest that oat crop as forage, I think you remove a lot of the potential to have a negative impact on your corn crop because you removed the bulk of the biomass. You still have the roots, which you want, and maybe there's some root impact. We don't know that for sure, but that especially if those oats go to head, man, they get stemmy. We love them as a cover crop. They need to be managed. But the 50 pounds of nitrogen out of the manure, absolutely, that works awesome. It will double your biomass production, and it will avoid this yield drag that might happen if you don't get them harvested as an emergency forage. But the other thing I would throw in here, Lyndsey, is that, oh my gosh, if you're going to do that and you need emergency forage, Shane and I, my great technician Shane McClure and I did a bunch of work on this, I think from 2011 to 2013, something like that. And what we found was that nitrogen rate is the key driver for both yield and quality in that oat crop. And if you're going to harvest them as an emergency forage, it's not 50 pounds of nitrogen you need. It's at least 90 pounds of nitrogen and maybe even 120 pounds of nitrogen. You want quality, you want yield, nitrogen rate, and maybe some sulfur, because we are going sulfur deficient now. And we did the research before the sulfur issue, so I'm not sure of that. But man, you want quality, you want yield. Nitrogen rate is more important than seeding rate. Lots of people say, well, I'll up the seeding rate. That's not the key. The key is more nitrogen.
And two things. So to recap, we have to think about the goal, right? So if the goal is that, yes, it's a cover, but it's also going to be forage, so you're actually going to harvest it, that's a key consideration versus, say, in the scenario where that cover crop is just there to be terminated and off you go to the races the next year. So I think that's really key, is to think about the goal. And so for this particular producer, maybe it's both. Maybe it's dairy manure and, a commercial fertilizer with some sulfur in it. We talked about sulfur last week. Manure, we don't consider manure a sulfur source. I learned that. That was Marla Reichman taught me that last week. That's my ticket for this week. We don't consider manure a sulfur source, which I thought was great for so many things. Don't consider it a sulfur source. So that is super cool. Okay. I could further complicate things and say, okay, well, what if I'm putting in a cover of oats and then I graze it off?
No? I still want that nitrogen there.
Okay.
If you want biomass, Lyndsey, if you want biomass, if you want those woolly sheep to really have lots to eat, you need biomass production. And if you don't have nitrogen, Dr. Dave's work, the work that Shane and I did, are quite clear. Without nitrogen, you get at least a 50% reduction in biomass, and that's just that much less feed, whether you pasture it or you harvest it as a forage.
All right. Okay. Nitrogen. All right. Last topic. We are going to talk a bit about, we've talked about, this trying to establish maybe a relay crop or a double crop or a cover crop. Really neat conversation with Aaron Bowman, who right now, as I understand it, in a pretty dry spell. But when we think about, sort of for Ontario anyway, the original cover crop really is red clover and winter wheat, best buddies. Aaron's had some success with establishing red clover in the fall. Riddle me this, Pete. What on earth is happening?
So it's really intriguing. We tried, we have done seeding date trials with red clover, and our best success was in March, but we still struggle to get a good red clover stand. And Aaron has found over years he wasn't getting a good stand when he frost seeded, so he seeded in the fall with his winter wheat. Or actually what he did was seed the winter wheat, and then he ran over the field and spread the red clover, and he says it's like he's using a brilliant seeder, and he is having excellent success with that. And so I asked him, does the red clover not hamper your wheat harvest? And he said, if the wheat is thin, one year he only had 94 bushel per acre winter wheat, which I'm thinking, wow, that's actually pretty good winter wheat. He had red clover that caused problems with harvest. When he gets his normal good thick wheat crop of 110 or 120 bushels per acre, it's thick enough, the red clover doesn't compete. But interestingly enough, he tried one year with the drone seeding red clover into the soybeans, and then coming back after the soybeans were off and drilling his winter wheat. He said that was just a disaster because the red clover there was as tall as the wheat. And so timing is important. In our study, we couldn't always get the red clover big enough to survive the winter, but our winters have gotten easier for the most part with, the warming trend that we're seeing throughout our winter periods. And so maybe people should start thinking about fall red clover. Maybe that would get us away from the slug issues that we see. That's often what takes us out in the spring. If the red clover was well enough established in the fall, maybe slugs wouldn't be an issue and we could get more consistent stands. Certainly something to think about.
I love that because we have to adapt, right? And red clover, as you said, Pete, you've done some fantastic work on what works, what doesn't. But if we shift things a little and we're starting to have success, it might be worth a shot. Because slugs, everybody, terrible. oh my gosh, seeing some of, now, touch wood, we don't seem to be in a situation where slugs end up being the problem, but where they are a problem, goodness. Like there's really only one control option, right, Pete? And it's incredibly expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. They're mollusks. You have to buy a molluscicide. None of us can afford that. I think I had a grower who actually did a very small trial with deadline bullets, which is a molluscicide. And he said he spent $150 an acre. The red clover survived where he did that, but who can spend $150 an acre to get a red clover stand? Nope, not going to work. Have a nice day. Don't no-till your winter canola because the slugs will wipe you out.
There you go. That is the key. Oh gosh. Plus they're gross. Okay. Pete, we're going to leave it there. Thank you again for another great lineup of agronomic topics. Check out Wheat Pete's Word. It happens every Wednesday and you can find it wherever you get your podcast. Go and download it. Pete, have a wonderful week. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lyndsey. Going to go to the field and plant my own cover crop oats with 50 pounds of nitrogen applied.
Look at that. He takes his own advice, everybody. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with our last segment of the day right after this.
Dairy producers wanted for the first American Dairy Expo, November 5th and 6th at the Champlain Valley Exposition in Vermont. Grab a free breakfast, tour the 200 Company Dairy Innovation Trade Show, meet Olympian and dairy producer Elle St. Pierre, and take in the Dairy Delivers classroom. November 5th is Dairy Fest at 4 p.m., featuring a massive dairy buffet, live entertainment, and industry networking. Full details, discount coupon, and pre-expo tickets available at AmericanDairyExpo.com.
It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com. Brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
Back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and we hop now to all things drone spraying with Adrian, Rivard, and Bern Tobin.
So right now we're talking about the drones and specific uses with spraying. Again, we're talking about the actual uses and limitations and how well they can work when you use them properly. The great things that they can do. It's a new technology that people are really wanting to harness. Lots of things that you can do in terms of crop nutrition, cover crop seeding. We do a lot of work in research and development too of a lot of crop protection products, even also a lot of non-agriculture uses, treating different use cases. Invasive species is one case, or again even spreading predatory bugs. There's lots of interesting new developments for the drones that are coming down the pipeline that are really kind of changing the agriculture landscape.
Yeah, let's talk about Drone Spray Canada. Year 5, I mean, it's been a breakneck pace. Talk about how this business has grown.
Yeah, it's gone substantially the last couple of years especially. We kind of started out on our farm in a outbuilding, and now we've got a 6,000 square foot facility and lots of staff. We've got a couple of branches across eastern Canada now. So yeah, we're really helping customers understand the drones, servicing them, training them, assisting in sales if it's something that they think is something that they want to use on their farm. Support has really been a big key component of us, but also, again, educating customers how to use them properly and effectively. There's a lot of, again, if you just kind of read the brochures, a lot of big claims in terms of spraying, 50, 60 acres an hour is possible, but again, every kind of use pattern is different. Again, if you're in tall corn, you probably want to put a higher gallonage, slow down a little bit. So again, just really kind of showing customers the proper way to do things. And same thing, if we're talking about a cornfield or a soybean field or wheat or versus an orchard or a vineyard, there's lots of different ways that you want to use the drone. It's not kind of an all-season tire. There's certain ways you got to set it to do certain things.
Let's talk about rotary drones. I know they've changed. They've changed a lot in the last 4 years. We've just seen a new drone from DJI. Talk about, I guess, the capacity, your abilities to deliver, target, spray with, manage drift. A lot of things have changed, and a lot of things you need to tackle.
Yeah, it's it's a really dynamic market. It's really interesting. There's always something new. It's never stale. Again, last week DJI did release the T100, the T70P, and the T25P in their new product line. We don't have an ETA as to actually when we'll see them. Maybe again for the next growing season. The T100 is kind of the Cadillac Big Daddy that we're going to see. Right now they're advertising it with a 100-liter spray tank. The T50 that I have here was the flagship 2 years ago. It's got a 40-liter spray tank, so we're going to see a really big uptake in capacity. Again, the T25 here with the 4-nozzle kit, it can have a maximum output of 24 liters per minute. The T100 right now is advertised with their 4-nozzle kit to be up to 40 liters per minute, and again, double the speed. Right now we're about 23 mile an hour. The T100 can go up to probably about 45 mile an hour.
Yeah, and you've got capacity there and speed. Let's talk about, I guess, usage for the drone. Adrian, obviously doing a lot of foliar application, a lot of seeding. Let's talk about the label here. The big question is, when can we do fungicides and herbicides? Let's start with fungicides. Where are we there?
Yeah, again, for the last 4 years specifically, we've been working extensively with a lot of the major registrants. A lot of efficacy trials. Tar spot is the big boogeyman here in Ontario. Down in the south where our head office is, there's some really good honey holes that are really unfortunate for growers, but great for research. I know Albert Tenuta and everybody, he focuses in that kind of Rodney area. We've been doing a lot of projects, again, spraying untreated and then titrations up, different gallonages to kind of see efficacy. We follow up with imagery and see kind of how that crop dies down. And again, the labels showing, the manufacturer saying to go spray at a gallon an acre. Well, we're seeing a lot of those treatments fail. We're liking that 3-5, depending on the products you're using and coverage. 5 gallons of the spray drone, we're even seeing is better coverage and control of tar spot than a field sprayer at 20. It's all about how you set it and how you use it.
Right. It's an opportunity, obviously, on the fungicide side, especially with tar spot. Where are we with herbicides now, Adrian? I know we've been talking about it for a number of years. Maybe some trials being done and some labels being developed.
Yeah, we are, again, for the herbicides, more on the non-cropland use. Again, their invasive species is a really big concern. We've been working on some projects for about 3 years with that. We're hoping the product is going to be labeled in the near future. There is, again, an industrial use herbicide that is also labeled right now that can be sprayed on some trees. It's, again, going to be a game changer. They're used to going out there with backpacks and sprayers and doing, a couple of acres every day. We can do that in the morning, and we know no one falls or gets wet. It's a really nice herbicides on a crop. Again, right now, everybody would really like to see that. Drift is, again, something that you have to manage with the drones. They are far more prone to drift than a field sprayer. Again, and we're talking in an orchard, the air blast sprayers, they make tons of drift. That's what they're built for. So again, understanding how to use it and how to use it safely.
Hey, 5 years you've been at this. I'll ask you to look forward. Where are you going to be in another 5 years? We've talked about a lot of things that have to happen. Do a little blue skying for me.
Yeah, it's, again, the uptake in the market's been really high. People, again, are seeing good returns from even putting a foliar on their soybeans and having a 10-bushel bump. Having no crop compaction, those sort of things. So the technology is, everybody wants it. Again, everybody's very excited for any regulatory hurdles coming out of the way. We're hoping that can maybe change next year. Again, there's no promises. But in terms of drones, I don't know if they're going to get any bigger. They're already, the big T100 here is already going to be probably about 170 kilo drone. That's a pretty big piece of equipment. So maybe, again, we'll see more smaller drones working in teams, or again, maybe rotary machines will be different. Maybe we'll be fixed wing. We have no idea what the future is going to be. When we started the company, we had a little drone, kind of looked like an R2-D2 sort of thing, and now it's basically just collecting dust and kind of just a memory of what it was. But there's a lot more AI integrations. Again, the T100 is going to have LiDAR sensors on it. It can see so much more. Again, spot spraying, very much prescription-based or AI-driven analytics. Maybe see and spray will be on the drones. So much more capabilities, and we're just scratching the surface.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode of RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I'll be back Wednesday for the show. We'll catch you then.